Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to my shop. I'm Dave Plummer, a retired software engineer with a reasonably popular YouTube channel featuring some rather obscure computer programming topics like the secret history of Microsoft Bob and stupid C++ tricks and computer language drag racing. 6 million or so views later, I've got a bit of a secret to share. I've got autism, and not just a little. I mean, at one time, they might have called my case Asperger's, but given his Nazi activities, no one's going to be advocating for being called that these days, so it's all one big happy family under the larger umbrella of autism. I've dropped a few hints to those paying attention with comments like, there might be a whole spectrum of reasons why I am that way, and so on, but I've never been plain about the fact that I actually do have autism. But how do I know that I have it? Well, because I was tested very thoroughly. You see, when I was first told that I might have autism, I thought it sort of laughable because I'm reasonably empathetic and sensitive and emotional and funny and all things that I thought would preclude me from being anywhere on the autism spectrum. So I took an informal test, about a 10-minute version of the 10-second test that we'll get to shortly, and I was surprised enough by the results that I booked an appointment with a top local neurologist, confident that my warm personality and engaging humor would make for a short interview. The doctor, though, was less blasé. After talking with me, she decided that a full psychoneurological workup was in order, including an adult SAT, an IQ test, and about 12 hours of other testing. As I told close friends of this upcoming testing, I was fully expecting a chorus of, "What? You? Autistic? That's silly." But instead, I was met with reactions like, "Fascinating. Let us know the results." I wasn't sure how to read those reactions yet, of course. When the big report finally came back, I found out that I indeed had autism, along with a pretty good case of attention deficit disorder, which is pretty typical on the spectrum. And while I'm considered reasonably high-functioning because of my IQ, I'm also apparently 99th percentile, meaning only about 1 in 100 people in the general population is more impacted by the symptoms of autism than I am. So given that about 1 in 68 people are thought to have ASD, maybe you can make some kind of fraction out of that, but I'm not going to try. The percentile number that you get is really all they can give you for a severity index besides assigning a level such as 1, 2, or 3. On that scale, I'd be in between 1 and 2. Like I said, it's one big happy spectrum, so from here on out, I'm just going to call it autism or ASD for Autism Spectrum Disorder. So what's the difference between having autism and having autism disorder? Well, in my mind, a person could, at least in theory, have a little autism. By which I mean, they could have some of the symptoms in concordance with autism, but they don't rise to the level of being pathological for them, so they don't constitute a disorder. To me, the symptoms of autism are best described as simple neurodiversity, up until they cause unavoidable pathological outcomes. That which cannot be accommodated, nor easily tolerated, rises to the level of being a disorder. And while I'm making confessions here, I might as well note that back when I started this channel, I did so with a bit of an ulterior motive. When I first got my diagnosis, I kind of resented being labeled, and I felt like I was being placed in a restrictive box of some sort. So I decided to push back on the walls of that box by intentionally doing things that were and are different for me, because uncharted territory is where the most discoveries are made. Similarly, doing things you suck at and perhaps are afraid of is where the most growth occurs. To that end, right before COVID, I hosted a big open house shop party for dozens of friends and acquaintances right here in Dave's garage. I started writing a book, and I started this YouTube channel. I'm one of those folks who doesn't even like having their picture taken very much, and so editing yourself in glorious 4K 60 on a 38-inch monitor for hours or days at a time is some serious exposure therapy. And it's also given me a great opportunity to write about 3,000 words a week, which I enjoy a great deal, and to practice my masking. What's masking, you might ask? Put bluntly, it's the art of acting normal, and I'm still getting better at it. It's also the subject of just one of the chapters of the book I've been working on, which has just been published in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. It also features chapters on empathy, emotions, mind blindness, marriage, parenting, employment, and many more. It opens with my biographical backstory and takes you on through the Microsoft interview process, getting the job, moving to the US, and so on. Now, the title is a little bit of clickbait, so brace yourself. It's called Secrets of the Autistic Millionaire because that will make people click on it on Amazon, but the subtitle is really more accurate. Everything I know about autism, ASD, and Asperger's that I wish I'd known back then. Basically, I wrote down everything I wish I'd known about autism when I was younger because I wasn't diagnosed until just a couple of years ago. I grew up knowing I was pretty damn different, but I had no idea that it was also normal to be so different, and that it had a name, and that there were millions of people just like me who experienced life and thought and emotions in much the same way as I did. And those people also have ASD. While the title might cause one to quite reasonably conclude that the book is about financial success, the book is really more broadly about living a successful life with autism, however you define success. When it comes time to talk about your life's purpose, I even have Venn diagrams with 3 levels of overlap, so you know I'm serious. The book, then, is how to live your life with the benefit of my hindsight. Take what I know about education and parenting, employment and business and so on and apply it to your own life. And that's where the title comes in. The book isn't solely for those with autism, though. It's also intended for those who love, live with, work with, or are friends with someone on the spectrum as well. And no matter where you find yourself on the spectrum, if you're in the tech industry, knowing all you can about working with folks that have ASD is only to your benefit. I consider both what it's like to be managed by a manager with autism, as well as how to best manage an employee with autism, so both perspectives are adopted. And I take the same approach in the marriage chapter, for example. I'd sure be flattered if you'd check out at least the ebook free sample on Amazon, and I've put links to it as well as the paperback and hardcover in the video description. Nothing would make me happier than having many of you pick up the book, especially if it all happened in the next week or so, in order to really kickstart the book's visibility on Amazon. And don't forget to leave a review if you do. Why do I care? Because promotion of this book is entirely up to me. You see, when I was a young lad, I thought that a book publisher would get you on talk shows and feature your book on billboards and magazines and secure reviews and even sell the movie rights. And so they will, if your name is Stephen King. But for new authors like me, it's totally grassroots. And so I don't have a big Rolodex, if you know what I mean. But I do have you. And to that end, then, I'm asking for your help in kickstarting the marketing of the book. Of course, picking up a copy of the book helps a great deal, as does recommending it to friends and family. And I'd love it if you could post it on Reddit or Facebook or any other place that you might participate in that has an ASD focus or even an audience that would make it appropriate to do so. And if you happen to be neighbors with Oprah or Ellen or Joe Rogan or Donahue or whoever is relevant these days, by all means, please do let me know how to get in contact with the right people. I don't even know where to begin in that regard. Or if you work for an agency that has that kind of pull, email me. I need your help. I could also use quotes from famous people for the back cover and so on. I have a nice one from Dr. Temple Grandin, but it'd also be nice to have a quote from somebody on the spectrum in the tech industry, for example. And so if you know someone, I don't know anyone, hook me up. Now in the thumbnail, I promised you a 10-second autism test, and I surely won't disappoint. I even think it's pretty accurate, but of course, even if it were, there would still be a huge number of false positives and negatives, and that's why it took them more than 12 hours of testing on me to get a real answer. So it's entertainment value only, and if you're interested in a screening test for real, I've placed one in the video description that's still only a crude test, but it's better than the 10-second version, I'd wager. If you're genuinely concerned, contact a medical professional and they can connect you with the right specialist. I found that my testing was all covered under my insurance, but if you wanted a copy of the report as I did, that generally was not. But check with your policy or your agent to be sure. So with those disclaimers out of the way, if you're ready, we can begin. Sharpen your number 2 pencil and get ready to answer a single question. And that question is, which is more important to society, creativity or cooperation? Your answer shall determine your fate. As a gross generalization, I found that neurotypical people generally lean towards cooperation, whereas those on the spectrum tend to opt for creativity. I've heard autism referred to as the technology genes, and I think that notion has some merit. I would imagine that 100,000 years ago, a teen tribe member became bored with the idle fireside gossip and wandered off to try to make the perfect arrowhead with a rock and some flint. With a flair for anticipating how it would fracture and a personality that demanded symmetry in all things, this tribal Tesla may have been one of the progenitors of the gene set that contributes to autism today. As Temple Grandin has speculated, without the genes for autism, we might still all be socializing around that campfire. Now, does that mean I believe that creativity trumps cooperation? Well, for several years, I actually did, until one day, I realized there's something that's even more powerful than either. And that, of course, is both in combination. A society sparked by the creativity of a few unique individuals and then fueled by the dedicated cooperation of the neurotypical. We don't all need to, as Steve Jobs put it, think different, but it helps a great deal if at least a few of us do. As you can tell from the lack of new content in the last 2 weeks, wrapping up the book publishing has taken a substantial part of my time. But I don't want it to become a big part of my persona, if you know what I mean. And so it's not something I'm going to focus on with this channel a great deal, and to that end, I've created a channel called The Autistic Millionaire to accompany the book. If you enjoy my content in general, or you just have an interest in ASD in particular, please do head on over and subscribe to the Autistic Millionaire Channel so that you signal your interest to the algorithm. I'll be doing a reading of the first few chapters, beginning with Burgers with Bill Gates, the story of the first time I ever met Bill. Make sure you subscribe to the Autistic Millionaire Channel for everything ASD related, as I'll be returning to your regularly scheduled C++ tricks and language drag racing here soon. Don't forget to grab yourself a classic Dave's Garage mug from the channel store with all proceeds from this channel in calendar year 2021, including views and mugs, going to the UW Autism Center. I'd sure appreciate a thumbs up on this video to let me know if there's even a bit of interest. And even give it a thumbs down if I annoyed you with it. I'm curious about that too. Thanks for joining me out here in the shop today. In the meantime and in between time, I hope to see you next time, right here in Dave's Garage.